microplastics are everywhere. They have been found in the North and South Poles, at the top of the Everest, and up to the remote high-altitude Alps. Scientists have detected plastic particles even in human blood, and yet we still know too little about their impact. Welcome to the first episode of the PlasticHeal podcast. Join us in a journey to explore micro and nanoplastics effects on human health. Today we'll talk to Alba Hernández Bonilla, Associate Professor at the Autonomous University of Barcelona and PlasticHeal Coordinator. Why is it important to study the impact of micro and nanoplastics on human health?
Micro nanoplastics have been categorized as an emerging risk, basically relying on two lines of investigation or two sets of data. The first one is that micro nanoplastics are everywhere in the environment, are in the air, in the water, and in the food. So humans are inevitably exposed to these micro nanoplastics through ingestion or inhalation of these micro nanoplastics present in the environment. Combined with this exposure is the other line of investigation that indicates that these micro nanoplastics we are exposed to can trigger some effects in ecotoxicity models. However, so these two, the exposure of humans and the potential effects has led to the categorization of micro nanoplastics being an emerging risk. However, we still don't know. We still have a lot of questions without answer. We don't really know if micro nanoplastics pose a risk for humans or not. There's only limited evidence, and we need to complete this evidence to really be able to categorize the risk. So that is why it's so important to conduct research on this direction. We need to fill the knowledge gaps that we have on micro nanoplastic exposure and effects to be able to categorize the risk.
So what will PlasticHeal do to fill those knowledge gaps?
Well, the main objective of PlasticHeal projects is actually to provide with new models, with new biomarkers, and with new evidence to understand whether micro and nanoplastic can pose a risk for humans. This means understanding if micro nanoplastics are harmful, in which direction they are harmful, what is the effect that they are able to trigger, and what is the mechanism by which micro nanoplastics produce this effect. So that's the overall idea, to really understand what do micro nanoplastics do and how this effect is produced. And with all the data that PlasticHeal will produce, the idea is to inform regulators and policymakers so they are able to use the data that we produce to limit the exposure of micro nanoplastics in the population. So we would like to produce data that is useful to protect the population in the end.
How are you going to produce the data?
The idea is to combine human data directly. So PlasticHeal will collect information from human exposed or highly exposed to micro nanoplastics and combine that information of the exposure and the effects of micro nanoplastics in these population groups with data obtained using in vitro and in vivo and in silico models. So in the end, combining the human data with the other data, we will be able to comprehensively assess what are the potential effects of micro nanoplastics on human health.
It's a multimodal approach then.
Yeah, it's a multimodal approach and also a multi-endpoint approach. So for each one of these models that we are using in the project, we will also assess multiple biomarkers to make sure that we really understand what is going on regarding the effects. So it's a multi-model approach and multi-biomarker approach.
What would you like to achieve with the project?
In the field of micro nanoplastics, there are several challenges to be able to produce the data that we are discussing about, to be able to reach the objectives of the project. We have some challenges ahead because we want to understand how we are exposed to micro nanoplastics. And for that, we need analytical tools that still they are not developed. And we need to understand what are the harmful or the potential harmful effects of micro nanoplastics. And for that, we need reference materials, micro nanoplastics materials, to use in the laboratory models that we are using. So making the field advance in that direction, it's also very important. So it's not only a matter of understanding the micro nanoplastics effect, but also to try to solve these technical limitations that prevents us from reaching the objectives. So I will be really happy if in the end we have the tools that are needed for the scientific community to contribute and to advance in the understanding of what's the exposure to micro nanoplastics and the effects of micro nanoplastics. And of course, it will be really important for us if we could, at the end of the project, define what are the most important effects that micro nanoplastics is able to trigger, to try to see what are the specific things that micro nanoplastics, differently from other contaminants, are able to produce in humans.
It sounds like the team is truly writing science, the history of science along the way.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that we are in a very new field. We just realized a few years ago, we realized that micro nanoplastics may pose a risk. The current regulatory framework for micro nanoplastics is missing. I mean, we cannot really assure that micro nanoplastics are safe for humans. And being in a new field means that we need to develop the models, develop the tools before being able to really test the hypothesis. So yeah, I think that the project will do the first steps in a field that will be continuing for a long time.
That's it for this episode of the PlasticHeal podcast. Our thanks to Professor Alba Hernández. The PlasticHeal project has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme. For further information about the project and to find out much more about the results and findings of PlasticHeal's research, please visit our website at plasticheal.eu. You will also find us on social networks at Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.